Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm now calling to order the Standing Committee Transportation. I will, instead of calling attendance, I will just say who is joining us. My colleague, Alderwoman Kendall Charles, who is on the committee. So we have a quorum. And also in view is Director Gordon and Assistant Deputy Director Kodua and Assistant City Attorney Ashley Leonard and our TV, our crew, for lack of a better word, but our City Council Associate Takia Green and Julian Jackson. Let me just take this time for a real big shout out to Takia and Julian, who I know for sure are here every morning faithfully. They are always our backbone in this new virtual world. And Mark, wherever, yes, Mark's here, you don't see him, but they are our unseen heroes during this new normal. So I think you all received the agenda. I know some of you, like me, are challenging trying to do a dual screen or what have you, but if you have a paper copy, that works just as well. So could I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair, I moved that we approve the agenda.
So moved. And let's see, our first business before the committee is approval of our last meeting minutes. We haven't had that much legislation, unfortunately, so those minutes are dated November 14th, 2019. But could I have a motion for approval of those meeting minutes?
I make a motion to approve those meeting minutes from November.
And so I second and so moved. Rick, you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you were, yeah. Yes. The first piece of legislation we have this morning is designated loading zones 07-20. This was sponsored by my colleague Alderman Gay in review with the businesses and Director Gordon. And it's a very exciting piece of legislation in the sense that it introduces the acceptance of the city on rideshare, such as Uber and Lyft or what have you, and cab and taxis as well. And my colleague noticed, I believe on West Street, that there was congestion when an Uber was trying to let people pick people up or drop people off. There was a safety hazard, and that happens a lot downtown. And plus, more rideshare is less cars on the road. Oh, we have a commercial interruption. No.
Sorry I'm late.
No problem. My colleague Alderman Rodriguez, and also on the committee, is here as well. So this legislation was introduced by Dwan Gay, and let's see, I don't believe it has had any amendments, but Director Gordon might fill me in on that. It's also been vetted by SP Plus, our parking management company. But I'd like Director Gordon to elaborate a little bit more on it if he would do so.
Sure, absolutely. The designated loading zone legislation essentially expands the use of loading zones to make specific loading zones shared use. The idea is, rather than designating additional valuable parking downtown for taxis and TNCs, we opted to create a shared use loading zone. Now, it would not affect all loading zones, and it would not affect all times of the day. For the most part, the taxis, the TNCs, they tend to focus on entertainment areas, restaurants, and most of their operations occur in the afternoon and evenings. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, could you explain for those that don't know what that acronym means, TNs?
Transportation network companies or network providers. That would be the shared use companies, the Ubers, the Lyfts of the world.
Thank you.
I also provided you all with some comments that came out of the Rules and City Government Committee meeting on this a couple of weeks ago. Alderman Arnett raised some issues, and what we did was provide a better definition of a shared use loading zone, as well as the site selection and review process. The sites themselves will be determined by the parking work group, which consists of a variety of members, including city government and SP+. That would be how the sites would be determined, and they would be reviewed by that group and forwarded to, once accepted, those sites would be forwarded to the alderperson or the ward where the site would be located for the alderperson to share with the commercial establishments affected and determine if it's a location that would be acceptable. If in fact it is, it would come back to Public Works where they would determine the signs that would be installed and the time frames that the loading zones would be in effect as shared use. Beyond that, that is essentially where we are with this at this time. In my mind, this was a relatively simple improvement, but it's turning out not to be that. And I think we're seeking some guidance from the various committees, including the Transportation Committee, as to how we go forward with this.
Thank you. Could you explain a little bit about, I didn't follow you, so who first makes the recommendations? In other words, we have an inventory of loading zones, that's the inventory to choose from where these would go. Who makes that first suggestion again?
The first suggestion would be from the parking contractor, SP+, because they are there at all times. They know which sites are heavily used and the time of day that they would be used. They would bring those sites back to the parking work group, which you're familiar with. And that work group consists of Public Works, Transportation, several members of the mayor's office. We would vet those sites at that point to determine which sites we want to move forward with. At that point, the sites would be submitted to Public Works if they're not a part of the regular work group, because they're not, but if we could get them involved, we would all be able to sit at the table at once and make a decision. Once the decision is made, then those sites would be sent to the alderperson for the affected ward to share those sites with the commercial establishments that could be affected and make them aware that these loading zones, these shared use loading zones would only be in effect certain times of the day. And the idea would be so that they would not impede the commercial deliveries that normally would come earlier in the day.
Right. And Alderwoman Pendle-Charles.
No, you finish your thought, Alderwoman Tierney. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I obviously most of those would probably be in my ward and not necessarily, but there'll be a lot not a lot, but downtown would be the focus. So knowing SP Plus the way I do, I'm sure that they would assist me in reaching out to the businesses, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Just one thought I had is, and maybe this is part of the plan, is like they usually do is put a temporary sign. And was there any discussion about there being a pilot of these? Like this is a pilot for this to be a shared, and if it's failed, then or if it's successful, then make the permanent sign. Is there any thought about a trial?
That's a good idea. I would think we probably do that with the first couple of sites to see how it works out, and then move forward from there. That's an excellent idea. I would like to see something temporary put up to let drivers know that this is coming.
Yeah, and I don't think in sharing our city attorney's philosophy, I don't think that would need to be legislated. I think that would just be part of the procedure.
Part of the process, absolutely. And by the way, it would also, I would think some of these would also end up in Eastport as well.
Correct, and maybe West Annapolis. Yeah. Alderwoman Pindle, Charles.
Thank you, Alderwoman Tierney. Just one quick question, Mr. Gordon. I know historically we've had issues, conflicts, for lack of a better word, between our traditional cab drivers and our Ubers and our Lyfts of the world. Does this negatively impact our traditional cabbies in any way? And if so, or even if not, have they been apprised of what is going on?
I'm not sure that they've been apprised at this juncture, but the idea was to include taxis so that they benefit from this as well as the TNCs. We want to open these sites up for all shared use vehicles, and that would include the taxis.
Is Miss Rosie still working with the traditional cab drivers as well?
Yes.
Okay, that might be just something she might want to, just a suggestion, that she reach out to them and just explain to them exactly what's going on, because I know they're very concerned. I have not talked to anyone, a traditional cab driver, about this, but I know just as a matter out of courtesy, I guess, to just reach out to them and to let them know what's going on and how it will be implemented. And if they have any suggestions or comments regarding this project, then they are free to express their concerns or interests.
That's an excellent idea. I'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
I think that that is a very touchy subject in the sense of the cabs. You know, there's a competitive issue here and all that. So let me ask: Uber and these ride shares, they're all they pay their respective taxes. Is that all been resolved? And because that's been one of the arguments with the specific cab companies, that the cab companies, you know, pay the city their responsible taxes, and the ride share groups, you know, is that been discussed? Or do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I don't know how Uber and the TNCs pay their taxes, but I do know that, and that's probably best answered by the finance director, but I do know that there are funds from the TNCs that come into the city coffers. The taxis obviously pay an annual registration fee, which we're coming up on now. And since I've been here, that fee has been reduced.
Okay, yeah, and the way to I believe that this opens up more convenience and spaces for cab drivers as well. You know, that This is, and it's part of, you know, we're sharing. And,
yes.
Yeah, but my colleague Alderwoman Pindle's Charles comment should be followed through on. Yeah.
And it definitely will be.
Okay.
Can I just add something, Alderwoman?
Yes.
The legislation was drafted. This is Ashley Leonard.
Yes.
It was drafted so that it only opens it up to drivers of TNSs that are lawfully operating in the state of Maryland under Maryland laws. So they will have to comply with all the Maryland laws, including paying everything, in order for this section to apply to them.
Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Ashley Leonard. That you answered my question. That's really important to know. I don't have any. I know that it's been through public safety and rules and city government, and I don't have any. There is I see what you're saying. Rules and city government would like to see it again.
I'm not sure if they want to see it, but I've provided them with the same information that I've provided to you all. I haven't gotten any response from them to date. So I'm not sure if they want us to come back again, or if they have follow-up questions they'll bring to the full council.
Okay, Takia, could you assist me in that? What is the next step on this legislation? I don't remember seeing it on Monday night's draft.
No, because it'll be going back to rules, which would be
Okay.
It will.
Tuesday.
Oh,
Okay.
this following Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We should be there then, Director Gordon,
Yep.
to questions. So is there any more discussion on this legislation? Could I ask for a motion to recommend it favorably or not?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion passes that the legislation is recommended favorably by the Transportation
We need to take a
Committee.
vote.
Oh,
All
we
those in
need to
favor?
take a vote. Okay, all those in favor of recommending favorably the legislation?
Aye.
Aye.
Raise a hand. Okay.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. So now we have the big one. This is really important piece of legislation, and the reason actually why we're meeting this morning. This is, and I'll have Director Gordon explain the grant procedure, but this is a resolution for filing of fiscal year 2021 grant application with the MTA, the Maryland Transit Authority, for authorization. This legislation authorizes the filing for these grants. If I'm not mistaken, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are receiving them, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be wonderful? I will read for those of you watching. This is R2320, filing of fiscal year 2021 grant application with the Maryland Transit Administration for the purpose of authorizing the filing of an application with the Maryland Transit Administration of the Maryland Department of Transportation for Section 5303, 4, 5307, 5309, 5310, 5311, 5316, and 5317 grants under the Federal Transit Act for a total amount of $2,778,950, consisting of, it's broken down accordingly, I'll just round down, 1.3 million for fixed route transit operations, 189,000 for ADA complementary paratransit services, and 427,500 capital grant for transit vehicle maintenance, 699,286 capital grant for the purchase of 2 heavy-duty replacement buses, and 156,574 capital assistance for the purchase of a skylift. And for those of you who have been following, this grant applications are in line with the city. You see this? The City of Annapolis Transit Development Plan final report that was presented to the City Council October 17, 2019. So it's all in here, how all that money would be utilized. Director Gordon, could you expand on that, if you would, please?
Alderwoman, you did such a fantastic job. There isn't much left to say about it. It is our annual grant. We apply for these funds every year, and as you say, we don't always get the amount that we request, but it comes awfully close. In this case, this year, the one outstanding item would be the Skylift system, which is the vehicle lift for the buses in our garage. The unit has exceeded its useful life. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we would have quarterly meetings here with MTA. They would come around every quarter and meet with us. So they got an opportunity to see the condition of the lifts. They know that they've already exceeded their useful life. And we're hopeful that we can get the funding to replace them. With regard to the vehicles, we're at a point now where several of our vehicles have reached the end of their useful life. Again, MTA is aware of this. They work with us to provide the funding for us to get replacement vehicles. So we're at a point now. I think we've replaced 5 vehicles so far. We may have 6 to go in the upcoming years. And these 2 vehicles are in need of replacement. So beyond that, and we've already been told there's a good possibility we can get these funds, but oftentimes we don't get exactly what we asked for. I think last year we requested 3.2 million, and Dr. Kwaku, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we got 2.1. So, it's not always a given, but we like to put forward the application and get what we can to make our system the best system that we can make it.
Yeah, and I hope my colleagues on the finance committee are listening or are aware of this effort, because it's important to know that we have access to this revenue, and it is for a very vibrant transportation system. Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Thank you, Alderwoman Tierney, Chairwoman. Director Gordon and Deputy Director Duwa, just a side kind of comment, and maybe we can address this at the end, just kind of in 25 words or less. Looking at our transportation issues and and this grant, can you give us some reflection and maybe just a mini status report on anything COVID related, either to this grant request and the report, and going into the future, but 25 words or less. Since we meet monthly, I think it's apropos just to kind of give us just a quick little snapshot.
Sure, we've taken a hit in ridership and revenues as a result of COVID-19. Nothing unexpected. We adjusted services along the way so that we wouldn't put out vehicles that didn't need to be out there. And the good part of that, it allows us to have a couple of extra drivers here to clean and sanitize our vehicles. So our vehicles are cleaner now than they've been the whole 5 years I've been here. The other good news is we just received pre-award notice from the state for CARES Act funding. And that funding is going to make a major difference in how we move forward this year and into next year. So that is essentially the good news. I think we'll be fine getting through this. Let's hope this doesn't last much longer. And we should be okay, Alderwoman.
Also, Director Gordon, could you publicly give us a shout out for the gentleman who devised the shield on the buses, please?
Oh, yes. Adonis Bishop works for Public Works. I put out a call maybe a month ago asking the staff, the maintenance staff, to come up with something that we could put in place that could add some additional protection for our drivers. And Adonis came up with a plexiglass shield. He was able to cut it and mold it so that it fits around the driver's cabin, and it really provides extra protection. Since we did that and the press release went out, I'm getting calls from all over the place asking how we did it, what we used, and what it cost. So I think it's catching on. So that worked out really well for us. Our drivers are very happy with it. They feel a little more comfortable sitting in the vehicle with that shield in place protecting them. So that works really well. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Deputy Director Duwa, so much. Dr. Duwa, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I think that's also an opportunity for a shout out for the circulators' use in the food distribution.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a tough. As you all know, the parking revenues help support this financing structure as well. So with the parking revenue down, it's all relatively difficult. But that's great news on the CARE Act funding.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, that's great. So I believe that there are no amendments. And so with that, is there any more discussion? Okay, I will ask then for a motion to recommend this this resolution to move forward to the city council Monday night.
So moved.
Second?
I'll ask for a vote by a raise of hands for those that approve recommendation for this legislation to move to the city council Monday night.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Unanimous vote for recommendation. Recorded. Thank you very much. And that ends the agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order? No? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Thank
Go
you all,
forward.
everyone, so much. Have a great day.
Peace. Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Bye.